Welcome to Go Get Great, the podcast for aspiring entrepreneurs and ambitious small business owners. I'm your host, Brittany, owner of Brittany Miller Socials and mother of 3. Go Get Great is all about helping you make life and business work together. You'll learn about the fumbles that helped get me and my guests to where we are today so you don't have to make them. So come join the journey with Go Get Great. Good morning, everyone. I am excited to welcome Jennifer Jakobsen to the Go Get Great podcast today. Jennifer is a certified life and business coach for female entrepreneurs and a master level mental health therapist. She helps female entrepreneurs create clarity and confidence in their business and life so they can generate more cash, which we all need. She does this using her signature Clarity to Cash system. Her clients call her their business therapist since she helps them get out of their head so they can actually solve the problems in their business. As a wife and mom of 3 girls who's worked for many years in the mental health field as a psychotherapist, and a business owner, she has a unique perspective on how to ditch the overwhelm and I'm going to restart that sentence, Grayson. As a wife and mom of 3 girls who's worked for many years in the mental health field as a psychotherapist and a business owner, she has a unique perspective on how to ditch the overwhelm and negative self-talk so they can feel clear, confident, and in control. Her passion is to take female entrepreneurs from the place of feeling doubtful of themselves, confused and overwhelmed, to feeling balanced, confident, and free in their lives so they can effectively make money without stress and build a business they love. Jennifer offers both VIP individual coaching as well as small group coaching in her power groups. Both get you clear on how to have your dream business while helping you overcome any blocks in your way. So I'm so excited to have her here today because I know as a female entrepreneur myself that there are definitely a lot of mindset struggles that I am facing. And I'm excited to hear her insight on how we can clear up those blocks and create more cash and prosperity for ourselves and our businesses. All right. Good morning, Jennifer. How are you today?
I'm awesome. How are you, Brittany?
I'm doing really well. I am so grateful to have you here on the podcast today. Money is always such a hot topic in the sense that people either want to talk about it all the time or have absolutely no interest in discussing it because they feel like it's not flowing to them very freely. So I'm hoping that after listening to our episode together today, people will have some more clarity on how they can generate more cash for their business.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds great.
So I did a little introduction for you before we started recording today, but I'd love for you to introduce yourself in your own words so our audience can get to know you before we dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jennifer Jakobsen, and I call myself a business therapist because I am both a licensed clinical therapist and I am also a life coach for female business owners. And so what I've done is I've kind of combined those two together because I really feel like what often holds women back the most in their business from making more cash is their mindset and their mental blocks. And so I kind of combined my therapy skills and knowledge and background with my coaching. And this way I can really help women overcome all of the imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, all of the isms, and it's kind of funny because they all sound like they're these terrible diseases, but really it's just looking at our mindset, shifting our thoughts, and that really can free us up to taking the necessary action that we have to take in our businesses to be successful. So I have been a therapist for way longer than I care to mention, 20 plus years. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while to my three daughters. And then I discovered life coaching and I fell madly in love with that as well. I always knew I wanted to help people, but combining therapy and coaching together is like it's like the most exciting thing I've done in a really long time. So I'm really loving my business and just really love helping women to just see the success that they deserve in their business, because I think women, we have so many blocks, we have so many mental blocks, and we tend to get in our own way a lot. And so I really I want to empower them to get over all that, mind drama, so to speak, so that they can
Hmm.
have insanely successful businesses.
Hmm. I love that. And I definitely agree that there are women, including myself, mainly myself, that have a lot of things that are getting in the way of seeing the success that we know is possible for us. And I know that you have so much value to add. So I'm really excited to chat today. And I want to just dive right in. So I took your free quiz, which was super clarifying, by the way. So check for that. I know that was the goal. And for those listening, I'll link it in the show notes. But if you wouldn't mind just letting people know how to find the quiz that we're going to talk about for the next couple of minutes, that would be helpful.
Oh gosh, yeah. I have to actually look up the I
The
have to look
URL.
up the link, but yeah, probably
Okay.
better to check in the show notes.
All right.
Honestly, the quiz is called basically uncover exactly what's keeping you from more cash in your business. And it's a bit.ly link. So it's like
Uh,
bit.ly/uncover quiz. So you can go to that or just, yeah, go down to the show notes and find it there. That's probably easier. But what I love about this quiz is it really helps you to identify exactly what those mindset blocks are that are keeping you from more cash. And then
mhm.
once you know, because like the first step is obviously like figuring out exactly
Awareness.
what's in your way, right? So once you
Mhm.
have that knowledge, then I actually I send you a bunch of emails and I give you basically the cure for whatever that particular mindset block is.
Mhm.
So lots of just tips to, really manage that and shift your thoughts so that you can kind of move it out of the way so it's not blocking you anymore.
Yes. And I have got many of your emails and I've read some of them, but it has been a busy week. I've been away. But my quiz result is that my struggle or my obstacle is self-sabotaging behaviors, which results in overcommitting. 100% accurate for me, by the way. um, but I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about the different results that people could get. And then maybe some of the common self-sabotaging traits that many of us female entrepreneurs have.
Yeah, and it's some of the ones that I just mentioned, like really one of the big ones that I find that entrepreneurs really struggle with, especially women, is imposter syndrome. Like we
Mm-hmm.
really feel like we're a fraud in some way. And we come into our business and we have all these negative thoughts like, who am I to be doing this? They're going to find out that I'm a fraud and I don't have, a PhD in whatever. We start to
Mm-hmm.
like question how much we know, how much education we have. And none of that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how we see ourselves. And so if we can start to shift some of those thoughts, like if we start to say, okay, you know what? I'm not actually a fraud. I actually do know quite a few things. And sometimes I even have my clients list out, they're really like what they've achieved and their really positive qualities, like what makes
Mm-hmm.
them like stand out among all the other coaches or service providers out there. And one
Mm-hmm.
other trick that really helps, especially with this one, is like looking at the testimonials that you've had in the past. Like I
Mm-hmm.
keep mine pulled up on my computer. So when I have a day where I'm like feeling a lot of self-doubt or feeling, not as confident as I would like to feel, I read
Mm-hmm.
my old testimonials and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm actually making a difference for people. This business is a legit business. I'm not an imposter. Like, so those are some like little tricks. But yeah, definitely imposter syndrome. Procrastination
Mm-hmm.
is a huge one for
Mm-hmm.
women, for lots of people, not just women, but and we really have to look at like why are we procrastinating? Why are we putting things off, that we could get done? And so we have to kind of dig. And here's where the therapy piece comes in, right? We kind of have to dig a little bit deeper and figure
Mm-hmm.
out why are we procrastinating? And that's what that quiz gets to. The quiz asks
Yeah.
you the question so that you'll know, like, okay, these are the things, these are the traits of procrastinators, right? And this is
Mm-hmm.
why we do it. And so, again, the quiz is going to give you some really great tips and tricks to overcome this mindset block. Another big one, I won't go into all of them, but another big one is perfectionism. So,
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
that one really holds people back. A lot of us who start businesses have these like type A personalities. And so we want to be perfect. We want everything we put out there to be, picture perfect. We don't want to like have a day where we're in our sweats and our hair's in a bun. We want to like look perfect. We want our, everything we say to be perfect. And there is no such thing as perfect. And the reality is like our audience doesn't want perfect, right? Like
Very
our
true.
audience wants to see us. They want to see the real us. They want to know exactly, when we're having those bad days, when we're feeling like crap, that's okay because it makes us more relatable. It makes us
Mhm.
more human, and people buy people, right? Like no
Mm,
one's
yes.
really buying your products. Like people are buying who you are and your ability to connect and really relate to people. And they also
Mhm.
buy your confidence. So let's really talk about like how do we feel more confident in ourselves? And one of the ways that we can do that is to be more authentic, like to
Mm,
let
mhm.
people see the real us and like get out of that comfort zone of like having to have the picture perfect thing all the time. And when we start to feel more ourselves and more authentic, we start to gain confidence. And I think that's when we become very magnetizing for people because again, people
Mm,
buy us. They buy who we are.
mhm.
Even if they don't totally love like our container, like they're like, I want to be around, like for you, like they're like, I want to be around Brittany because Brittany has this energy. She's got this way about her that makes me feel very comfortable. I can ask her anything. I don't have to worry about her judging me. Like these are the traits that
Mhm.
people are really looking for. So if we can get out of that perfectionism, right? And
Mhm.
uncover the thoughts that are causing that for us, right? Because
Mhm.
a lot of times perfectionism is caused by this, like, I have to be perfect or no one will like me, or I have to,
Mm,
present this certain way or they're going to judge me. And if we can look
mhm.
at those thoughts and shift them in a way that helps us to feel more comfortable being more authentic, then we're going to be able to really just feel amazing and have all this energy, and that's what attracts people. So
Mhm.
that's what I think. And this is what I find time and time again. Everyone I talk to, my clients, just women who I talk to in this field, these are the things
Mhm.
that get in their way.
Yeah. It's so interesting to see that the majority of us are all struggling with similar issues. Like there's a few different ones, but similar issues. And yet, when we're going through it, we feel like we're the only ones that are facing
Yes,
these issues, which
so true.
um, I think speaks a little bit to how we maybe present ourselves online, like authentically on social media. And I had a conversation recently with a couple other people about, how do you present yourself and your business authentically online to still attract those people without, basically lying. I don't like that word, but like about how busy you are. And people ask you all the time, oh, how's your business doing? And I was like, I really don't know how to answer that question truthfully. My business is not necessarily generating the income that I would like, but I absolutely love what I'm doing. And I just, need to be more patient. So, like, do I say not well, or do I say that it's going really well because I feel lit up when I come to like work every day? And
Yeah.
I feel like there's kind of a disconnect in how we present that authenticity, which is probably what is causing some of these behind the scenes symptoms for us.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up. I actually just did an Instagram post about that very
Oh,
thing. Yeah, that like I wish I could remember exactly what the post was on, but basically, like, if it's kind of like how we define success, right? Like, so,
mm-hmm.
if someone says, how is your business going? Like, that's kind of I don't know, maybe that's not the right question to ask. Like maybe the
Mm-hmm.
question is, how successful do you feel in your business, right? And if you're
Mm-hmm.
lit up every day when you come to work, you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work to you. You actually like truly enjoy it and you are making money and and you believe that you're going to make more money as time goes on, then
Mm-hmm.
to me that's success. That's absolutely
Yeah.
success, right? And so
Yeah.
and it's going to be different for each individual. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think, you know, maybe we're not making the money that we want at times in our business, but if we love our business and we truly believe in what we do and we truly like you said, are lit up by what we do and believe in ourselves, have confidence in ourselves, have confidence in what we're able to help people with, that is
Mhm.
what will attract clients over time, right? So
Mhm.
feeling successful, regardless of, other people's definition of success, feeling
Yeah.
successful yourself
Mhm.
is going to attract clients. And I believe that
Mhm.
wholeheartedly because people are attracted to happy people. People are attracted to
Mhm.
people who have a smile on their face, right? And they're going to trust you and know that you're the right person for them, even if you didn't have the best month, And like we were talking
True.
about before we started recording, like summer kind of sucks for a
It's
lot of
slow.
people. So that's the
Yeah.
reality. But, who cares? Like if you love
Mhm.
what you're doing, that's success to me.
Mhm. I think we need to start reframing the question. And instead of asking people, how's your business doing? We should be saying, like, how are you feeling in your business? Or do you
Yes.
enjoy what you're doing? Or something along those lines so that it clears it up for people to provide an authentic answer based on, their feelings and their business. Yeah, I like that
Yes.
better.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
Mm-hmm. So I am curious to know a little bit more about your clarity to cash system. I have listened to a few of your podcast episodes, but I know you have an actual program that helps women kind of overcome some of these blocks that we've talked about. Can you share a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, so I've called it the 4 5C program. And
Okay.
basically, it's I don't know why they all ended up being C's. It just worked out that way.
Yeah.
But I really encourage my clients to get really clear, first of all, because you don't really want to do anything in your business until you're clear, right? So
Mm,
that means being clear on your ideal client, what your offer is, who you're for, who you're not for, right? Like, so getting
mhm,
really clear on kind of those basics in business. And once you start to get really clear on the basic stuff, and I can go more into what that means if you like, but
mhm.
once
Yeah.
you get really clear on those things, you start to feel really confident. Like you can go out there and be on social media and send emails, do all the things, and you feel a lot more confident once you're clear. Like if you go out there and you're like, I don't really know who I'm talking to. I don't really know who my dream client is. I don't really know what
Mhm,
my offer is or why somebody would want my offer. And you start showing up on social media, people are going to sense that you don't really know what you're talking about, right? And
mhm,
so it's really important to get clear first. And once you feel clear, you naturally start to exude this confidence, right? You start to talk about
mhm,
your offers, you start to talk about yourself and the way that you can help people in a really confident way. And again, that's what
mhm,
attracts people. People are attracted to people who are confident and believe in themselves, believe in their offers. So
mhm.
yeah, so it's clarity, then confidence, and then, oh my gosh, what's the next C? I haven't even talked about this in a while. So next we need to make connections, right? So
Mm,
after you're clear, after you're confident, then you make connections. Now that might be connecting with people in a networking group, that might be
mhm,
connecting with people on Instagram and Facebook, but just making connections with people because you can't have a business without people, right? We don't work
mhm.
this business in isolation. So
No.
it's really important. And like one of my favorite ways to connect is, or two of my favorite ways to connect is number one in networking groups. I love going into networking groups and meeting new people and forming those relationships. And it doesn't always have to be like, okay, you're meeting your dream client in these groups, but you could be meeting
Mhm,
other people who maybe know somebody who could use your services or they could refer
mhm,
you, right? So making connections is so key to business. The other way I love
mhm,
making connections, just because I'm often on Instagram, I'm also on Facebook, but making connections in the DMs in Instagram can be really
mhm,
helpful.
mhm.
So reaching out to people, asking questions, right? And don't cold pitch people. That's like no one wants that, right? Like making truly, again, going back to being authentic,
Mhm,
authentically asking questions, actually caring about the other person and
mhm,
what would be helpful for them, offering value, that sort of thing.
mhm,
The next C is consistency.
Mm.
And one of the biggest, I just have to throw this in there, one of the biggest mindset blocks that gets in the way, and mindset is the umbrella of this whole thing, by the way. So one of
Mhm.
the biggest mindset blocks that gets in the way of consistency is what I call shiny object syndrome. So people have a really
I
hard
have that.
time staying focused. And so what I do with my clients is I really bring them back, because a lot of times my clients will be like,
Mm.
"Oh my gosh, I just, heard about this thing over here, or I was thinking about switching my niche to this instead." And I'm like, "Okay, we need to stay in our lane for a significant period of time before we go changing up everything, right? Because that just
Mm.
leads to a lot of confusion, and that, again, now we're going back to clarity, right? So if we're not clear, so in this stage of being consistent, it's really just staying in your lane, staying focused on the things that truly matter in your business and not getting too, off track. So I help people really focus,
Mm.
I hold them accountable, and we really, and if maybe the day comes that we do want to switch gears and do something different, then we need to start the whole process again. We need to get clear again. We need to get
Okay.
confident again. And then we need to start being consistent. And that is what leads to cash. So, and
Okay.
I've actually been contemplating switching the whole thing to clients, because it's
Mm.
interesting to me, because a lot of people, and I know you started out this episode talking about cash today, but a
It's
lot of
okay.
people who I work with don't even really care about the cash that much. They,
Mm.
like you were saying, like, what is success? Like, success could be making a ton of money to one person, but to somebody else, it might just be really making an impact in somebody else's life. So
Mhm.
to me, it's more about getting clients, and then you decide how much money you want to make from those clients.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
like I like moving it to clients, which is still a C word. So it still works.
There you go. And you know what? That makes a lot of sense in what you're saying. And I'm curious to know how long you recommend clients stay in the consistency stage before they go back to the clarity stage if they want to make adjustments, because they feel like as an entrepreneur, and again, speaking from personal experience, we launch something and we don't have the initial results that we're looking for. And then we panic and think that, in my case, there's not enough value in the offer or that it's too expensive. And then we go and we make all of these like rash decisions. And maybe it was, that the timing wasn't good, or maybe there wasn't enough messaging before the offer was launched. So people were like ready to purchase when it happens, or maybe people just really love the offer, but they don't have the funds in their business. So I find that, again, myself, maybe not being in the consistency phase long enough. So how long do you recommend people stay there before they make adjustments?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, Brittany. I think it's kind of different for everyone, because
Mm.
what we want to look at, and this is another thing I offer with my services, is to kind of like do some audits of your social media and your, what you're doing actually in your business, because,
Mm-hmm.
once we get our mindset blocks out of the way, then we need to start taking action. So, what
Mm-hmm.
are the actions you've been taking? Have you actually been selling this offer long enough to really give us an idea of whether people want this or not, right? Because this is what I find so often, people think they're selling a lot more than they actually are. And it's because of
Okay.
all the mindset stuff attached to selling, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say maybe around 3-ish months. I work with my clients. Actually, the new program that I'm going to be launching, like probably like in the next few days, is I'm starting to offer 6-month programs, because I really
Okay.
want to dive deep. I want to get to the bottom of what's going on, what's not working, what can we do
Mm-hmm.
differently to make this work. So I would say between 3 and 6 months. But again, it depends on each person, because I want to be able to really evaluate, like, are you truly selling this enough? And even though you might be posting, like, you
Mm-hmm.
could be posting 7 days a week on social media, but if you're
Mm-hmm.
not selling your offer, if someone goes to your profile and they don't instantly know like what you do, like, I don't think it's a good time to switch up what you do. You know what I mean? Like, we want to make sure, like, and make
Mm-hmm.
sure you're selling yourself, in a really regular kind of way, and selling your offers. And I would want to also look at, like, what more can we do with this to get more attention to it? And then the other
Mm-hmm.
thing that I think is often missed in this space is are you excited about your niche? Are you excited about
Mm,
your offer? Because again, it goes back to that energy. And if you're like, I don't really love my offer, then even if we've only been doing it for a month, let's switch it. Like we need to
mhm,
get this offer to a place where you're like when you're on a sales call with somebody, you're like, you would be crazy to not buy this offer. Like, this is such a good offer, right? Like,
mhm,
and you have to believe that because if you don't believe it first, they're not going to believe it.
mhm.
So, yeah.
It's very true. It is very true. I have seen people that have sold, we'll say, things that have basically no value for absurd amounts of money because they had the conviction behind it. And people were just like enthralled with how they were selling it, not necessarily the item that you bought. Like you said, people buy people, not products and not services. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's also something that I talk about with my clients a lot too. They're like, well, I'm posting consistently on social media. I do like 3 posts a week, let's say. I was like, okay, cool. But I landed on your page and I can't tell where your business is located, if you provide online or like in person services, what it is that you do. And I was like, it's no wonder people aren't following your page and reaching out to work with you because they have literally no idea what you're doing and they're not going to spend the time to look. So unless you give them the information right away, they're gone.
That's so
So I feel
true.
like people skip over that step more than they should. And they're like, well, it's not working. It's not working. Let me make changes. And I was like, yes, but maybe the changes you need to make are not what you think they are.
Yeah. And I always say, like, this, I don't know where I heard this, but you can't see the prescription from inside the bottle. So this is
Mm.
why, like, people like you and I can really help because people think one thing, but the reality is something different and they don't even know
Mm-hmm.
it, right? Like they can't, like you just said, like, when someone, and really we have the attention span of what, a goldfish, or a goldfish has more of an attention span than us. I mean, we have to
Yeah.
like, somebody needs to land on our profile and be like, I know exactly what that person does. And if they
Mm-hmm.
don't, you've lost them because
Mm-hmm.
people don't like being in confusion, right? Like if they're
Mm-hmm.
confused, they're moving on. But if they're like, oh wow, this is really interesting, that's why like when I switched to business therapist, I had a lot of people say, gosh, I really love that. And I had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people say to me, I have no clue what that means. And you know what I
Fair.
discovered? Because I was like, oh gosh, so I had a lot of mind drama about that myself. I'm like, oh gosh, maybe
Mm-hmm.
I should call myself a business therapist. But the people that knew right away what that meant were my people. They were the
Mm-hmm.
people that were like, yes, that's what I need in my business. That's exactly it. I need a business therapist. I need to do the
Mm-hmm.
inner work before I can be successful. I need to do the
Mm-hmm.
inner work in order to take the actions necessary to be successful because otherwise I'm just going to stay stuck. So the people that saw that word and they were like, I'm confused. They moved on, which is great because they
Yeah.
were probably never going to be my clients anyway. But you want to
Mm-hmm.
be clear for your clients. So
Mm-hmm.
when somebody lands on your page and they are your dream client, you want to be calling them out right off the bat. You want them to be like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. And I think you're right. And when you said business therapist, I was like, oh my goodness, this is brilliant. Why has no one ever like used this to describe who they are and what they do before? So I'm probably
Thank
your ideal
you.
client. You're welcome. I've worked with life coaches before and I've worked with business coaches before. And like I've seen success with what they do, but I know for me, what is probably going to help me move my business further in the next little while would be working with someone like you as a business therapist, because it's not that I need support figuring out what systems for my business. I know what they are. They're not in place yet. I'll get to it. But it's all that inner work that we've been talking about of removing those limiting beliefs and kind of getting to the core of what's holding me back, which is what's going to propel me forward. But I find people are not necessarily open to talking about those things, and they're kind of like resistant to the fact that that's the struggles that they're facing and why they're not being successful. It seems like the problem is always, oh, I don't have enough money to spend on paid advertising for my business, or I can't hire this person to help me. And be like, well, maybe you need to help yourself and invest in yourself first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I believe that so strongly. And I I know it's hard and I know it's a big investment. And I've struggled with that myself because, my background is a social worker, right? Like, so,
Mhm.
um, when I first started making money in my business, I mean, I made so little as a social worker, back in,
Oh.
I mean, obviously this was many, many years ago, but,
Mhm.
and when I discovered life coaching, I was like, oh my God, how can these people charge this much money? Like, this is a lot of money. But here's
Mhm.
the thing, what life coaches provide, and I'm not going to say all business coaches, you got to find the right person. You got to find the person that you trust and is the right person for you. And I feel like you just know it. Like, you have to kind of trust your instincts a little bit. But the thing
Mhm.
is that putting that money into something that could be potentially life changing for you is so 1,000% worth it. You know what I mean? So, and I had to get over my own money blocks around it, but it really is like when
Yeah.
you invest in a coach at a higher level, people people who pay attention, right? If you
Mhm.
charge like whatever, some really low amount of money for your services, people are going to
Mhm.
give you that much back, right? They're going to invest that much back, as far as their
Mhm.
mental attention and that sort of thing. So I think, you know, granted, some of the the really high ticket offers out there, I'm like, "Oh my God, really?" Like, I'm like, "Seriously?" But I do
Mhm.
think there is some value in charging more. And so I will always encourage my clients to, charge again, go back to like what feels really good for you and maybe
Mhm.
what's a tiny bit out of your comfort zone to charge. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because we always want to be pushing the limits of our comfort zone a little bit. Otherwise, we don't grow
Mhm.
and we stay stagnant, and humans are not meant to stay stagnant. So I
Mhm.
do think, and then as a client, I think spending that much money, you are so invested. You are going to figure this stuff out because you're spending a lot of
Mhm.
money on it, and you're not going to, sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this, but you're not going to half-ass it. You are going
Yeah.
to go full in if you're spending a
Mhm.
lot of money, and that's where the results are going to come from. That's where you're going to see
Mhm.
the crazy success because you're like, holy crap, I just spent all this money. I have got to show up in a much bigger way, and that's
Mhm.
where the magic happens. So
Mhm.
I've had a lot of, back and forth on this, but I do think, spending money that's not going to like put you like in a homeless situation or something, but it's something that stretches you, I think is a
Mhm.
really, really good way to truly grow in your business and grow as a person too.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen masterminds registrations that are like $10,000 and I was like, haha, that hurts to like think about, but I know
Yeah.
going to events like that probably adds so much value, but it's a really good point too that when people are spending larger amounts of money, there's more they're invested in it and they're going to show up, which I feel like is a big thing in my business. Like I really want to help people. I need to pay the bills, but I want to help people. So I run a lot of like free webinars and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am literally telling you how I run my business. You could like watch my webinar and then go create your own social media business and help other people do what I do. And the attendance rate on the webinars is like so low. It's actually kind of insulting. But it's because they haven't invested in it and they're not invested in the outcome. So they don't necessarily show up, which is frustrating. And part of me has wondered whether or not I should try running paid webinars, same concept, but paid webinars instead of free and see whether or not the attendance rate is higher.
Yeah, I mean, you can always experiment, but if you were my client, I would kind of dive into some other stuff first. Like really, there is a process and there is a strategy to it all, but again,
Mhm.
with my services, we would want to be looking at like how you're showing up to when you're advertising these things. Like I don't
Mhm.
think you necessarily have to pay to get people to show up, but it's hard. And here's the thing is even if it's horrible, even if it's like nobody comes. I've done webinars where no one has come. You know what? And
Yeah,
it's
oh, me
really hard
too.
to talk to a group of people when you're by yourself. But you know what? That's
Yeah.
okay. And you have to not make any meaning to that. You have to not
Mhm.
attribute, you can't say, oh God, I suck. Nobody attended my webinar, right? But what you do is you say,
Yeah.
okay, what can I change about this webinar to entice people to really come?
Mm.
Like maybe I need
Mhm.
to Like, did you really like, and when I say advertise your webinar, not with paid ads, but did you actually like get out there and tell people the benefit of coming to this webinar? Because if people
Mm,
know like what they're going to walk away with and that's something they want, they will be there. So sometimes it's
mhm,
just tweaking a few things. And I wanted to touch on masterminds because
mm,
I'm a little biased. So just to put that out there, the $10,000 mastermind, the $15,000 mastermind, do that when you're making a lot of money. Okay. Like that's
mhm,
great. But before you're at that point, before you're where you really want to be financially, I feel really strongly you need customized support. You need
mhm.
individualized attention. If you're in a
Yeah.
big, huge group of people, there's something beautiful in that as well. I'm never going to say don't join masterminds, but
Mhm,
in the beginning, again, you need somebody who can kind of point out those blocks that you're not seeing yourself. I think
mhm,
in the beginning, and not even in the beginning, just, maybe even like 2 to 5 years in, like if you're not quite where you want to be, have somebody come in and really like give you that one-on-one attention. Like a lot of times big masterminds, you just get lost in the crowd. And even if you do get like some hot seat coaching, it's going to be really brief because you're in this big group of people. And yeah, you can definitely get a lot of value from watching other people get coached and hearing what other
mhm.
people are doing in their business and what's
Yeah.
working for them and what's not. There's definitely value in that. But I think until you're really feeling good about where you are in your business financially, I would not invest that kind of money in a mastermind. I would spend the
Mhm,
money in the one-on-one coaching or the super, super small group coaching, because that's where you're going to get the attention and the guidance and the one-on-one, just the one-on-one attention that you need. So yeah,
mhm. Yeah.
that's my opinion.
Oh, no, I agree. And I've never participated in a mastermind before, but I follow a couple of people in my industry that are like where I want to be in 5 years or 7 years, because that's how long they've been in business. And like that, those are the new services that they're offering. So I was like, oh, like, what are you charging for those? And I was like, oh, okay. It's like
Yeah.
almost crazy to think that that could be me in 5 to 7 years too, which is yet another limiting belief that I need to work through.
It could be
But
you in 5 years.
yeah,
It could be you.
yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
really you almost have to stretch your brain a little bit and say, it will be me. It will
Hmm.
be me in 5 years. And so if this is you in 5 years, how do you show up today to
Hmm.
become that person? Like, how can you actually show up today as that person that you're going to be in 5 years? Because
Hmm.
that's how you really move quickly. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like,
Hmm.
actually, like, okay, so 5 years from now, when I am where that person, I'm watching this person and she's where I want to be. Like, instead of comparing yourself, right? Comparisonitis is a terrible disease. Like, we don't want to
Oh
compare.
yeah.
What we want to do is say, that's where I really want to be. That's my vision. So how do I
Hmm.
show up right now as that future self? How do I show up as my
Hmm.
future self? What are the thoughts that I'm thinking to myself? What am I
Hmm.
doing? So like almost putting yourself into that future version of you. What does she do when she wakes up every day? What is
Hmm.
she thinking about every day? What are the feelings she's having? How's she showing up, right? So if you could
Hmm.
do that, like that really can help you move the needle too. So a lot of this, again, coming back to business therapy, this is the inner work. Like,
Yeah.
how do we become that person now? And I'm not saying
Hmm.
fake it. Like, I mean, there is something to faking it till you make it, right? But you don't have to fake it, but you can definitely like switch some things up in your life. Like if you are,
Hmm.
and this is like kind of me, so I'm just like, like if the alarm goes off in the morning and you just keep hitting like snooze for like 2 hours, right? Like I don't want to get
Hmm.
up, I don't want to get up, I don't want to get up. And you think, would my future self do that? What would she do? Maybe she
Hmm.
would hit the snooze one time and then say, okay, I'm going to get up and this is what I think my future self's going to do. She's going to journal. She's going to meditate. She's going to, do these things for herself so that she can
Hmm.
show up in her business. So does that make sense? It's like kind of making these little tweaks just so that you can start to see yourself in that person.
100%. And I think that it's so true too. It is the little tweaks and it's like one little adjustment probably at a time so that you get the habit, you stick with it, and then you add another one. And it's not like an overnight, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock the next day and I'm going to meditate and journal in the morning and I'm going to meal prep and eat healthy. And you can't dive that far
No,
into your
no,
future self because you're going to
no,
backpedal real fast. But
absolutely.
slowly over time, you end up becoming her, which is how you become her. It's a very weird kind of
Yeah,
paradox, but yeah.
I love it. Yeah, but I mean, such a great point. Yeah, you don't want to do all those things at once because that's kind of setting
Mhm.
yourself up for failure. But, just making those little tiny habit changes every single day, just kind of doing a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, it really builds up. And then you do become her. You do
Hmm.
become her and you will become her.
Yeah. So I feel like people talk about this a lot too when they're like, what would your future self do? But I feel like what people don't necessarily discuss is what would your future self not do? And how do you identify and subtract those behaviors from your day so that you can spend more time working in your future self zone? Do you have any
Yeah.
suggestions for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Although I do have to say it's harder to remove a negative thing without
Mm,
replacing it with something positive. So yes,
hmm.
if you're doing something and you're like, gosh, my future self would never do this thing,
Hmm.
instead of just trying to throw it out the window, get rid of it, I would say like,
Hmm.
what would she do instead?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
like looking at that thing, whatever it is, like I'm trying to come up with an example, like eating something really unhealthy, right? Because you kind of mentioned like meal prep and that kind of thing. So if
Hmm.
you're like, oh my gosh, like would my future self sit down and eat, you know, a bag of potato chips? Do you think she would do that? No, I don't think she'd do that. So what would she do instead?
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe she'd allow herself a little bit of her potato chips because she loved them and that's really
Hmm.
yummy. But she would have a very small portion, and then she would also add in some healthier things, some carrot sticks, some celery sticks, and reward herself at the end with the little bit of potato chips or something like that. So it's like, what can you do instead? How can you make these small changes over time? So yeah, does that help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The replacing it with the healthy habit, I think, is the big thing because I feel like the quitting, like you mentioned, is harder to do unless it's replaced with something else. I feel like that's why people struggle with quitting smoking because they haven't filled the habit with something more productive instead. And that's something that I'm going to say my dad has struggled with for a very long time, but I honestly don't think he was ever committed to making the change in the first place. But that's something that we see a lot in my family of, dad, you need to quit smoking. And, he'll go like a day or two without it. And then he's back smoking again because he hasn't filled that time with a more productive habit.
Exactly. Yeah. And old habits are hard to break. So yeah, you definitely have to. And there's a time there where it's going to be really tough, but
Mm-hmm.
once you're able to put that new habit in there and you do it enough times, it becomes second nature and it's not so hard anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we had kind of chatted with before we started recording in our DMs of Instagram is promoting your business and how sometimes it can feel kind of icky and a struggle. And a lot of that is because of mindset, which we've talked a little bit about before. But I wondered if you had any specific advice or recommendations for women that are struggling with that. I know I did a post about it, and that was kind of where we started talking about, I sent this message trying to, offer what I thought was a very kind way of saying, hey, I'm here to help. If you're interested, here's some, free resources to get started. And I was more or less attacked. It's not the first time, but, that day it just hit really hard. And I have some skills to work through that now, but I know not everyone is in that same place.
Yeah. And the first thing I would say is those people that attack you, that's all about them. That's not about you. And those people are never going to be your clients. So, wish them well and move right the heck on because,
Mhm.
staying in that place of like, oh, I can't believe she said that. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I need to change what I'm doing. I would,
Mhm.
I would not even, I don't know. I would go to somebody you respect and say, hey, do you feel like this is too salesy, or do you feel like this is too pushy? And get the opinion of somebody you really respect if you're unsure. But I would
Mm-hmm.
also just read it back to yourself and say, do I feel like this is too pushy? Do I feel like there's something wrong with this? And if you don't,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm sorry, but those people, like, there's just always going to be people who have negative opinions and negative feedback for you. And unfortunately, we're human. That's going to affect us. That's going to, like, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
feel like a little punch in the stomach. But I want people to always reframe that and say, that is not about you at all. It's all about them, right? It rubbed them
Mm-hmm.
the wrong way because of something that they have going on with themselves, not about
Mm-hmm.
you. But as far as being like, this, like, women trying to sell their services and the fear of being pushy, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just think we really have to dig into the benefits of our offers for people, the
Mm-hmm.
benefit of working with us that our clients are going to get, right? Like, I was listening to something earlier today, and it's like, for example, if you are a marriage coach, right? Say you're a marriage coach and you are offering your service to help someone in their marriage. They're on the brink of divorce and you're going to help them in their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Think about, like, if a coach could go in to this couple and talk to them and avoid them getting divorced, right? So they're on the brink of divorce. This coach is going to come in and make them have a happy marriage again and not get divorced. Like, what is that worth? Like, that's like life changing. I mean, think about
Mm-hmm.
the snowball effect of that. Like, that's going to make, such a difference in their lives, the lives of their children, the lives of their grandchildren. They don't have to pay for lawyers and,
Mm-hmm.
go through the whole process of getting a divorce. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is a huge service. So look at your own
Mm-hmm.
business and look at what you're offering and what that service is, and think about how life-changing that service could be for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then talk about it and say, yes, I want to help you. I want to change your life. I want to make a
Mm-hmm.
difference in your life that is so huge. And yes, that costs you some money because that is how businesses work. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't charge for your services, your business isn't going to be there anymore. You're going to go under, and that's not serving you or your client.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's very much a mindset shift. When people worry about feeling salesy, really lean into, like, what is the benefit? What is the transformation that your client is going to have after working with you? And I can tell you this too, the people who are worried about feeling salesy are never the people who feel sale or who people who come across as salesy. If you're worried about it, I can almost guarantee that no one's perceiving you as being salesy.
That is personally good to hear, and I'm sure that's comforted a lot of other people that are listening. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
yeah, you're
And
welcome.
it's interesting to hear you use the marriage as an example because that definitely makes a lot of sense and it hits home personally. But I feel like too people understand the concept of like preventative maintenance for their cars or their computers, let's say, but when it comes to preventative maintenance for their relationships and their business, it's
Right,
not, it doesn't translate the same, which is unfortunate.
right, right. Absolutely. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really back to, selling your services in a way that they can really see the benefit, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how are they gonna feel differently? How are they gonna think differently? What are the and so that, right? Like, so I always say to my clients, like, talk about the benefit and then say, so that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for example, like with my services, like, I help you gain confidence in your business so that you can find clients over and over again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to throw in that so that they can see the benefit. Sometimes people don't see the benefit, right? Like, they might be like, well, that might be nice to have, but I'm not sure that I really need it. If they can see the transformation, if they can, picture themselves like, it's like the before and after, right? Like you've seen
Yeah.
those transformations. Like this is what it's like before and this is what it's like after. If they can see that before and after and you can paint that picture for them,
Hmm.
they're much more likely to buy your services because they know what's in
Hmm.
it for them. And that's all people really care about when it comes right down to it. What's in it for them? And that's what
Hmm.
we want to do as service providers. We want them to have that thing that they want. So we're both on the same page. It doesn't have to be gross or salesy or icky in any way. This is a beautiful thing. And, exchanging money for this, again, people are much more, they're paying attention when they're paying you. If you give them
Hmm.
something for free, they're not going to show up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, speaking of paying for things that are going to be transformative and life changing, can you share a little bit more about your one on one coaching and your group coaching retainers in case any of our listeners are interested?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in the process of kind of shifting some things, and it's
Ooh,
not just
exciting.
shiny object syndrome. I'm working with a coach. And we're kind of revamping my one-on-one. But basically, my two offers right now, the two things that I have that are going to transform you and your business.
Mhm.
I have one-on-one coaching, which is I think I'm calling it my confident. What am I calling it? I'm working on my sales page. My confidence to clients.
Okay.
So I have one-on-one as well as small group coaching. And when I say small, I mean small. Like this is like 5 women or less. Okay. So
Okay.
this way everyone gets customized individual attention. And I'm still working on the group right now. I'm revamping all my offers. I'm kind of doing a whole new thing. But
Hmm.
I'm really clear in my one-on-one right now, and that's a 6-month container. This is something I've never offered before, and I'm really excited because I really think this is what is going to really help people, and we're going to be able to really go deep and get to the bottom of what's holding them back in their business. So this is a 6-month container. We're going to have probably weekly calls, maybe a couple weeks off. I'm going to be offering unlimited boxer support so that you always have a coach in your back pocket. I
Hmm.
also I also help my clients by going over, their Instagram profiles, their sales pages. I will give you feedback. I'm not a copywriter. I'm not going to proofread it for you, but I will tell you what I think could make things better.
Hmm.
So you've got me in your business. We are linking arms. We're going together. We're going to figure out what's holding you back and how we can get you to where you really want to go in your business. And this is for
Hmm.
women, I think, they have a business already. I don't want the brand new babies who, don't even have a business yet, because I think I can be much more effective for people who do have a business. They're making a little bit of money, but they're really feeling stuck and they're not sure what to do next. They have, like you said, Brittany, like you have the systems, you have the strategies in place, but you're
Hmm.
still not where you want to be. So this container is going to help you to get where you want to be in your business by overcoming the mindset blocks, getting really clear, confident,
Hmm.
consistent in your business, and making those connections that are going to get you those clients.
Well, that sounds amazing. So, if they're interested in more information, would you prefer they reach out to you on Instagram or find you on your website?
Yeah, Instagram would be great. I love hanging out on Instagram. So I'm sure you'll link that in the show notes, but I'm at J Jakobsen Life Coach, and it's Jakobsen with a K.
Wonderful. And you can also have Jennifer in your ear more often if you'd like to check out her Clarity to Cash podcast, which I highly recommend. That's available on Spotify, at least, because that's where I listen to it.
It's on all the platforms. It's on
There you
Spotify
go.
and Apple, what is it called? Apple
Apple
Podcasts.
Podcast. Yeah.
Yes, and you guys, Brittany's going to be on my podcast, so you get to, yeah, at this point, she'll probably have already have been on my podcast. So go check that out. Check out our interview. And yeah, and then if people want to check out the quiz and find out what their particular self-sabotage
Hmm.
specialty is, that's always fun too.
Yes, highly recommend that. That was very eye-opening. And after this, I'm going to be diving into the unread emails from you so that I can get more of the tips that you have for my self-sabotaging behavior. So thank you
Awesome.
so much for joining us today, Jennifer. You had a lot of wisdom to share, and I hope that we have been able to help some other female business owners find some clarity and direction in their business.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so too. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Brittany.
Thank you. All right. We will see you next Tuesday, everyone. Have a great week. Thank you so much for tuning in to Go Get Great. I hope you found some useful tips and tricks that can help you make life and business work together. If what I said resonates with you, please share it on social media and don't forget to tag at Brittany Miller's socials so that I can celebrate you for taking those first steps towards achieving greatness. Remember, success doesn't happen overnight. It takes dedication, hard work, and a lot of spirit. So don't be afraid to dream big and go after what you want. Keep striving for greatness. You get closer with every step forward, no matter how small they may seem. Until next time, go get great.